Welcome back to Feeling Called. I am Gina Torres.
I'm Lauren Tatro, and this is the podcast where we explore what it means to feel called and follow your life's purpose. And today we're really feeling called to dig in on the topic of history and alignment of astrological symbols, transits, and deeper meanings that have been present that might be impacting us today, how they've shown up in the past, and ways that we can leverage some of that information to apply to our day-to-day life for a deeper meaning.
Yeah, and a lot of what we are going to discuss today are things that we have come across from the collective energy. And today we're going to talk a lot about what is the collective energy, what does that mean, and also some of the emotions that are kind of coming up for people. We wanted to start with kind of identifying some of the here and now events and tracing them back to history and astrology.
Yes. So as we look at the theme of the collective, we're really talking about macro environment versus your micro day-to-day life. So the macro environment is where we zoom out and we think, okay, what's going on globally? What's going on within the headlines? What's going on within all these spaces where we're being inundated with a feeling, with a message, with something that is undoubtedly going to impact us in a variety of different ways on that micro level. So when we look at tools like astrology, there's so many things that have been written in history connected to very specific astrological events where there's patterns that are being created. And so now what we're seeing, and this is a time with a ton of disruption. We're not going to go too deep into disruption because our goal is to leverage this platform as a way to spend more time on what we want to create, what we want to do next, and how we can infuse more empowerment into our day-to-day lives to support it.
Yeah, and we want you to take the things that you can utilize. And we're not doing this to scare or to do the fear mongering thing. You will never find that on this podcast. We are simply providing education and guidance in a way where we have personally used it. And if you look into a lot of history, you'll find that there are events that happen every so often or every so many years. And then they also can be traced back to what's going on with the planets.
Yeah. And I think back to like eras that existed and what emerged within those eras. And this is where I really want to dig in to make sure we're not
Yeah.
misstating things. When we think about like the Renaissance era and the Golden Age and the period in time which everybody was climbing out of devastation, war, and what emerged was this rebirth of creative energy and artists. And it was like such a potent time to be alive in the lane of creative expression. And during that time, I think a lot of what happened with the collective energy is it had to break down in order for this to emerge. And what people were craving, what people were feeling called towards was to interact with something that made them feel something. And art really evokes emotion. So if those individuals didn't answer the call of what it meant to step into like this new era, climbing out of devastation and going into full creative expression. I
Yeah.
mean, talk about what it means to go first climbing out of that.
Yeah.
It's huge.
We would have never had a lot of the things that we have today. I mean, you think of even just how far the art industry and kind of the creative um impact that it's had on our entire world, right? And whether you're living in the United States or whether you're across the globe. I mean, when we talk about the collective energy, we mean the entire earth, like what's happening, even if it is somebody in a different country. So that's what we're going to delve into. All right. So when we talk about some of the planets and kind of what's happening, I am not an astrologer by any means.
Same girl.
But we are, of course, obviously using our technology here. And if you look outside and kind of just know what's going on in our country, which is the United States, the government is shut down right now. And so when you look at Neptune entering Aries, right, that is the correlation to Aquarius themes. So Neptune in Aries signals initiation of new ways of being rather than dissolving into old forms, which resonates with the breaking down of old structures and forging new paths. So when we think about what the planets are doing, and I think that that's about every 165 years. So that's never going to happen in our lifetime again. Like everybody on this planet, like that's never going to happen again. So we are actively working in a way that is breaking down the old school structures, the old government structures, working careers, like all these things that just no longer serve us, and the things that were put in place to kind of keep us controlled
Mhm.
and not expanded and not in our flow state and not in a creative portal that we
Mhm.
can get into.
Yeah. And when we look back on history, and again, we're not astrologers, but these themes you really can't ignore. So feel free to like dig in on your own, whether you
Mhm.
believe in it or not, and just look at the proof points. And one of the things that I think is really fascinating to think about is, of course, there's going to be potentially, we're seeing these parallels of what's happening then, what's coming up now. But the differences that we have within our society now, and even the use of technology and social media and the amplification of messages, when we think about the three transits, and I want to talk about these not from a place of fear, but from a place of just taking a moment like, whoa,
Mhm.
this is a potent part. Like we're part of rewriting history,
Yeah.
right? Like people are going to talk about this era, this time. What are they going to say about it? And the food for thought on this is that the last time Saturn was in Aquarius was during the Rodney King riots. The last time Pluto was in Capricorn was during the American Revolution, and Neptune was in Pisces when Rome fell. And we have all three of those things happening at once right now. And I think the most important thing within all of that, again, is that there's civil unrest happening. There is an awakening at the individual level that's being expressed in a lot of different ways.
Yep.
And so now that's starting to take over the airwaves, and really the empowerment and the uprising, the awakening of the individual, and really kind of understanding how much power we really have
Yeah.
as the collective. And so when those two forces start to come together, right? And now we zoom in to what's going on within our day-to-day lives. Where are we at war with ourselves? And how is that getting louder and louder and louder as part of the awakening of this breaking down that's happening?
Mhm.
Because if we don't feel that individual tug and pull and contrast, then that can never really, we can't come together in a way that builds a new system if we're not actively coming from a place or working or seeking towards a place of answering what we feel called to do.
No, we can't do it alone and you can't do it alone. So it needs to be, everybody needs to be online with what they're really meant here to do. And we believe that we kind of agree to this path when we are set here to come to Earth, and we kind of make this blueprint of what we're going to do while we're here. And when we don't listen to that and when we don't follow kind of what our purpose is, it gets louder.
Mhm.
And there are things that really like pivot us, and sometimes it's in a very harsh way that gets us back on point, and that's what's happening to a lot of people right now. I think that the system has been so indoctrinated in us, and obviously rightfully so. Like this is what our parents knew, our grandparents knew, and it like really only took 2 generations to kind of remove us fully from
Mhm.
land, from nature, from making our own stuff, from sustainability measures, from even going out and taking walks in nature. I mean, even thinking about how often you get out in nature
Mhm.
and what we bring inside to our home, and then we never leave our home, and like you wonder why we're sick, and I could go on.
Yes.
But anyway, we are here because we've made that agreement. And when you are not kind of listening to what your heart is really meant to do here, yes, you're going to be miserable and you're not going to feel fulfilled, but also B, the amount of people that you would be impacting and would be helping by doing what your gift is really the scary piece of it. Like going back to the Renaissance era, if they never kind of stood up and said, I'm going to create, then we wouldn't have art like we have today. And
Mhm.
we wouldn't have a lot of these modalities and a lot of these freedoms that we had people never kind of done what they were set out to do here, whether it was protesting, whether it was advocating, whether it was art, like all these things. So when we're talking about this stuff and you do feel a pull and a call to do something, I really encourage you to go deeper on that and kind of comb through that and see what is the fear that's behind it. And of course, we're here to kind of piece through those puzzles. We're really here to help you overcome that. So if you are going through something, just know you're not alone.
Sometimes it's mapped in the stars.
Yep.
And when we think about, the larger concepts where we fall on this construct of the idea that we kind of pick our circumstance, our outcome, not
Hmm.
necessarily the circumstance, what we're here to learn, what we're here to do. And that's almost like this soul contract prior to coming here. And so all the people and experiences that we're meant to encounter become part of that. We don't necessarily define right out of the gate the how, like the how emerges. And like I always say, if you're meant to learn forgiveness in this lifetime, then you're going to be presented with a ton of things that require forgiving. And when you start to look at the pattern in a different way, and this is where when you overlay any construct, whatever it is for you, whether it's astrology, human design, disc profiles, I don't care what it is,
Mhm.
whatever it is that helps maybe create a little bit more of a framework that we can be inquisitive against, like connecting the dots in our own ways. And when some of those things start to like coincidence just goes out the window
Yep.
because when you start to dig in on this stuff and kind of go into mad scientist mode, and it's just like, whoa, like I never thought about, what was the golden age, what was going on astrologically
Yeah.
speaking, what was the emergence and the awakening of humanity at that
Yeah.
time, and what are the parallel themes that are happening right now and through every age throughout history. I mean, it's pretty massive because really the collective and the energies that are here as one are working and breathing in unison, even though it doesn't feel like it. There's this constant rebalancing that is happening. And like, what is the sole mission of the planet in
Mhm.
as it relates to the hierarchy of things? And this ties into something we talked about before when we talk about like chakras in our energy centers in our body and how nature, everything's reflected in nature. And the concept that even our solar system each represents a different area within the
Yeah.
body, and Earth being like the liver or the place where we're really filtering
Detoxing, yeah.
out a lot of toxins. And there's a lot of pain in that. It
Yeah.
also serves a function and a purpose. And I think astrological themes can maybe help shine light as well on where are we history in the making, like we
Yeah.
talked about earlier. What role are we playing in that as individuals? And I think it's important to also call out, because everything is really mainstream right now, and there's a contagion. And I think what's often happening is what's called virtue signaling, meaning I'm going to jump on this bandwagon
Yeah.
of what sounds good and what's the right thing to say and what makes me seem the most open-minded, but in my day-to-day, I'm not actually walking that talk.
Yeah, and I think it's so hard because we've been so far removed from our intuition
Mhm.
that we rely on news and media, and we rely on our friend groups, and we rely on like the social element of things to find out where we belong.
Mhm.
And so once something comes up and they're like, this is the way you do it, you're like, oh, I guess if this is the way that to do it, then,
Mhm.
I have to.
It's the stream for a reason, right? Mainstream.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And oh, that's a good
You like that? Let's talk
I
about
did. I
mainstream.
did.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because if you dissect words, you can really like understand the deeper meaning of them
Mhm.
and how deep some of them
Yeah,
really
and
go.
mainstream as an energy basically says if you don't get into it, you're left behind. Like if
Yeah.
you're not going along with whatever that like
Yeah.
trend or that theme or what's being pushed at us from social media, then you're fringe or the person that's kind of forging this new direction. And so you might have people around you that are really in that stream. And that is all they know. And it creates a sense of belonging for them. Like you said, I feel connected to a larger purpose. It creates an opportunity to think about, where are we just trying to be right
Yeah.
versus doing what's right? I think it's a call for reflection for us to take a minute and stop and say, like, okay, where is this still a distraction?
Yeah.
Where is mainstream creating such a distraction and a polarity? It's really divisive, right? It's creating camps,
Yep.
it's creating us versus us, right? And this is where a lot of civil unrest comes from, because it's like you can't only stay in that for so long. But even though rebalancing of powers, it's all humanity. It's all working together, even though it feels like it's
Yeah.
against us. And I think that's a massive theme throughout
It's,
history.
and I think the craziest part is like knowing that people are fighting for you, like, even if you're not on their side. Like,
Mhm.
there are people out there that are literally, like, fighting for all of us that you probably hate right now.
Mhm.
And they, like, are here to literally make your life better.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of that media conversation comes in because it's really meant to polarize us. Like
Yes.
it's meant to divide us in a way where there's always this back and forth and there's always these hot topics and there's always these conversations that he said, she said, this said, like
Mhm.
all of these things. And if we come together, that we're way too powerful.
Way too powerful. And that's the breaking down of the system.
Similar to if I had the ability to do math.
Same girl.
I'd be too powerful.
Okay,
That's
same girl. We can't check all the boxes. That's what I always say. But no, I think there's a lot of power in even just looking at how that plays out, like in our day to day.
Here are some of the things mapping to our life in the age of Aquarius even. So Neptune in Aries, which is calling to initiate your true self, not just dissolve or end stories. Saturn in Aries, the emergence of new structure around who you are rather than the old run and grind mode. Uranus and Gemini, changes in how you communicate, teach, connect, network. And then the collective reset of our outer structures.
Break that down a little bit for me again, particularly around, because right now we're kind of at this intersection of where the system is broken down and where the new is emerging, new ways to connect,
Yes.
to authentically connect. So what are the things, the systems that you might be plugged into that feel stale? They feel like you're not actually making connection. Maybe
Yeah.
it's these are the things where it feels like you're going through the motions. If you feel like you're going through the motions, oh my gosh, what a waste.
Yeah.
So we have to first acknowledge that they're stale before we're going to even recognize that there's a call that needs to be answered. So I
Yeah.
guess the question then becomes, are you on the side of the fence that sits around and complains about how all the shit is broken and not working? Or are you somebody that then takes that and translates it into, okay, well, what can I do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Where and so that what can I do about it? That's where change lives, right? So if we're trying to climb out of a system or a matrix or an infrastructure that no longer serves us, and we feel the call to service and the rise to power that says, what can I do about this? Then it becomes, all right, the day to day, the micro, but also thinking long term, like a million years from now, what was the domino that started now that really birthed something massive that we might not see in our lifetime? But we talk a lot about, being the one in a family line that breaks a pattern.
Yep.
There was a series of little micro patterns that were building up to that point. And when we're at that point now moving forward, there's a whole other evolved state of that evolution that's being carried out through our
Yep.
family line. So it might not ever seem like enough
Yeah.
action, but when you zoom out and you think about the long term of it, that's how massive changes happen on this planet.
And usually the outliers of the group are the ones who really do make the changes because they have been outcasted and they're like, okay, well, how do I create a new way of doing this? And they're usually the ones to have enough courage and enough kind of like, hey, this is what I'm doing to actually start the thing. Remember when we kind of talked about like there needs to be someone that goes first? It's usually the people who understand that they're looking at a way that doesn't serve them and what do they want to create for themselves or their younger selves. Like that's literally the culmination of our business.
So let's talk about the big current energies and how they impact us. So how we're going to frame these is the energy of it, like what the collective is experiencing, what the impact is, what we're seeing as the fallout, and then our power. Like how can we activate our power to be a part of this awakening, this reemergence of energy? So, first, we're going to talk about Pluto in Aquarius. And that transit is 2023 to 2043. So, the energy here is big shifts in power, revolutions, and breaking of old hierarchies. I mean, damn.
Sounds pretty accurate. And if you think of where we are right now and everything that's going on around you, right? Think of what's going on around you in particular. In order to rebuild, we have to break down these systems.
Yes. And when you think about, so 2023 is when this really started, right? So we're coming out of COVID. right?
Mhm.
2019, 2020. So that point in time, which when we get far enough away from it, these are the themes that will be looked at, like what was happening
Yep.
during that time. That was a major, massive reset point. Like that space between where we've gotten off path
Yeah.
as humanity. So that reset needed to feel very massive to get us back on
Yep.
track in some way. We can't identify that they no longer serve us until we recognize that, wow, I can do this job from anywhere. So this was a biggie, right?
Mm.
I am actually like my activated free will says, wow, why can't I do this from home? Why can't I
Why do I have to go in the office? Why
have
do I
a
have to
slow
commute?
morning?
Mhm.
So the questions started to emerge, right? Of, you know what? I want better.
Yep.
This is possible. Yes, it was baked in, but so this external event came in and cracked open a new possibility, right? And so those are the themes that we're working with here that are really from now into 2043. So there might be pieces in there that serve, right? Because it really comes down to when things break down, what do we want to bring back together? There's going to be new ingredients. There's
Yep.
going to be some things that actually work very well. This isn't all negative. We're
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to create, regardless of what it is, it's a system
Mhm.
in some way. We just need to think about how can we look at that system differently to activate our personal power. So this piece of it, of this conversation for Pluto and Aquarius, is about stepping into innovation, leading collective change, and aligning with causes bigger than yourself.
Mhm.
Now, here's the caveat with that. When we think about aligning with a cause bigger than yourself, that doesn't always mean what's mainstream.
Yeah.
And I think that that is where we kind of take a little bit of a left turn and the control dynamic comes into play. Where if we stay divided, if we stay in fear, if we stay mainstream in these distractions, but we think we're activated in a powerful way in our day to day, kind of fighting against the cause, what's really happening is we are distracted, we are hating each other, we are consuming propaganda.
Mhm.
And when that friction, when that constriction is at play, money is to be made. Money is to be made in war. Money is to be
Yep.
made in everyday consumerism. And I'm not somebody that thinks capitalism is horrible, but we need to think about what it did,
Yeah.
how it changed our purpose and our collective mission as humans.
I even realized for myself what happened to me during COVID. Like, even though there was a whole world shutdown, I feel like it totally broke me out of my shell. And that was when I started having my questioning of like,
Mhm.
do I even want to be a police officer? Like, it really made me question. Like, I had the gut feeling, but it really made me question, like, what do I want to do?
Yeah,
It really kind of just broke that open for me to
absolutely.
rethink what it was that I
Right.
wanted.
So what was happening in your life in 2023? That's
Yeah.
a cool theme to work
Yep.
with. I quit my job. I left corporate.
I think I did too.
It's going to be 2 years next month.
I think I did too.
So like
Or
think
no, 2022 I did.
so now it's like this, the readiness, you're getting closer to it. So think about kind of where you were at, right? From this catalytic event, 2019, everything gets disrupted, systems get disrupted, the way we're even retail environments get disruptive. I think that that's kind of this individual piece of like, wow, I've been told that that's the only way we can do it. So I was going along with that.
Right.
And now I see that it's not. So the uprising is happening. This is the breakdown of the
Yep.
system, right? So that's that larger collective theme. This is like it gains momentum. So now we think about from now through 2043, if this is going to be the age where innovation and change and new
Mhm.
systems come online, then there's going to be a lot of people activated to create the new
Yep.
system, right?
Yep.
And that when we think about what that feels like on a day to day basis, these are the things that you're going to feel called towards. It could be a cause that nobody's talking about right now.
Yeah.
It could be something deeper that you feel connected to that hasn't hit mainstream yet. By the time something hits mainstream, it's already been distorted
Yep.
and twisted into something. This is intent versus impact that is too far gone.
Yep.
It's
Guys,
too far gone.
these big corporations and people with big money have media in their back pocket. So if you're thinking that they're not doing a lot of this stuff to kind of control what you're thinking and the narrative and what they want to push, I would just ask you to go within and
Mhm.
ask it if it's what you really believe
Yep.
in.
So that's where your power is. Think about where do you want to lead
Yep.
collective change?
Yep.
And first think about your immediate collective.
Yeah.
Think about the circles of influence that you're in. Think about how you're able to activate who you really are, your values, your day to day to ripple change into those environments. So that's the biggie for Pluto and Aquarius is really What started breaking down in 2023? Where is that road leading us? And how can we continue to come back to our day to day personal power as it relates to the compound effect of that day to day now
Yeah.
through 2043? So, Pluto was last in Aquarius 248 years ago. So, Pluto, as the energy of Pluto, is an outer planet, meaning it's very slow. It's a very
Mhm.
slow moving planet. So Pluto is really connected to the evolutionary state of the planet. Like some of those really large sweeping thresholds that we're not going to see while we're here in this lifetime. Pluto is
Mhm.
still at work in that space.
And then also in like astrological terms, this aligns with the early waves of the Aquarian energy, decentralization, transparency, innovation, and collective awakening.
I think there's so much divisiveness in people stating their opinion on what they think of the political views right
Yeah.
now. And I think if we can, again, all kind of take a step back and just look with more of a curiosity based
Mhm.
lens of like, what are the themes? What are the transits? What are the things that are happening that allow us to kind of not get so mired in the emotional um, dissonance and that's
Yeah.
creating the divisiveness and like the very extreme ends of things? And people are just angry.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emergence of anger, right? And so that anger isn't a bad thing, but if it's not looked at appropriately and channeled towards a potentially change, what is
Yep.
it telling us? What are we doing with it? And where is it self-destruct? Like, where are we self-destructing?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people just want something to be angry at, so they
Yes.
choose a person or they choose a party, and it's like, while we understand that that might be kind of what you're feeling, like, really to understand where that anger is stemming from, and that I think is going to open up, especially in this next phase of kind of the world and where it's going, is going to open up that kind of collaborative approach and understanding, right? Like we don't listen to understand, we listen to respond. And I think that that is the biggest hurdle in humanity right now is like we cannot understand each other when we're talking. It's just, what do you say? Okay, no, that's not why I do it. This is what I'm doing,
And like we're
responding.
not listening.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's all
not listening.
reactionary. And this, so again, zooming into your day to day and how this could show up, right? Reaction versus response. When somebody with an opposing view, whatever that is on any topic, comes into play, and there's an activation within you that it just immediately goes to like your stance.
Yep.
That's a reaction. That is like, nope, your truth and my truth they can't coexist. You don't understand me. Then we create sweeping generalizations on somebody misunderstanding us, and then we turn that into they hate us. There's
Yep.
hatred. There's all these things that start to stem from that dysfunction, right? But if we can all take a moment and understand, or at least look at, ask ourselves a question: where am I in reaction and where am I in response? And in the lane of response is curiosity. It's an innate, like a deeper sense of like, you know what? I want to see the way you're seeing it. It doesn't mean that I subscribe to it or that
Yeah.
I believe it or it's core to who I am, but it allows us to create a little more space for humanity to experiment with what the fuck is going on.
And we all bring something different to the table, which includes perspectives on things. And again, while I might not believe like the same exact thing that Lauren believes, I can still understand it and accept that as her truth.
Even like what people think about somebody saying, because I've heard this before, like, your truth. What does that mean?
Hmm.
Right. And I always will come back to feeling called as this topic, right? If you feel called to do something and that's part of your purpose and
Hmm.
what's falling away for new to emerge, that's connected to your truth. So somebody else that's not walking that path, they're walking their truth, isn't going to be able to understand
Yep.
why you see that as truth. And truth isn't just, that's not us saying we're debunking science. That's a whole different topic, and I think the two are getting interchanged
Yeah.
right now collectively, and that's a disservice to our ability to individualize, to kind of go towards the change that we seek, how to be that change and how to embody that on a day-to-day basis.
And
Yep.
especially if it comes from a place where that was a trauma in your life and then immediately, it's a reaction and then nothing ever gets solved. And
Mhm.
especially if you're not doing the work that's healing that trauma or that opinion for you or that, kind of whatever
Mhm.
is stemming that anger or feeling, we can't ever be on the same wavelength. And so it's each of our responsibilities to heal ourselves in a way where we can have an understanding and where we can respect others' viewpoints and kind of just even see where someone's coming from.
Like, you don't want to be surrounded by a bunch of yes people either. I
No.
think I think that a lot of people we're wired. Again, this goes back to like nervous system and fight or flight and all these things that are packed into this box. But what do you deem as safe? And there's a lot of
Yep.
emotions in that, right? So now it's like taking things personally. And when something comes at you, it's activating a lot. It can potentially activate a lot of different things. And
Yep.
that's different for everybody. And you never know what you're walking into. You don't know what somebody's been through. You don't know what their framework or their frame of reference is.
Yep.
And I think, and I want to kind of roll this into Uranus and Gemini. Did you have anything else on Aquarius that you found?
No, but there were just a couple of connections to the current global shifts from the Trump administration in 2020 and then now
Mm,
too. So I think really what it boils down to is, for whatever reason, this administration was supposed to be the catalyst for it. Again, whether you are viewing opposed or for, I don't
that's a
really
moot
give a
point.
shit. I
Let's see. We're not
don't
here to
give a
talk about
shit
that.
what
Mhm.
side you're on. Um I think that, again, this podcast is to really talk about the correlations of things and connection, not viewpoints. So whatever view you're on, I am for the greater good of humanity. So the events from 2020 to 2021 catalyzed a global awakening, challenging individuals and societies to confront and transform outdated structures, again, which we talked about. The systemic transformation, the Saturn Pluto conjunction, initiated a process of dismantling and rebuilding those systems. So that is currently kind of what we're still piecing together and pulling through. And then the technological and social evolution. So Uranus and Neptune's influence, which are spurring these rapid advancements in technology. So you think of AI. Yes, we've had AI for a long time, but when did that really come online? Like, you think about when AI launched, it was just like boom. And now, like, there's AI videos everywhere.
We're
And
using it right now for fact checking. You know what I'm saying? It's everywhere.
I think there is such a space where technology is meant to advance us in ways, but we have just utilized it for a lot of the wrong reasons and also become so dependent on it that is like, that is our truth,
Yes.
right? It's used, if we're fact checking, if we're using it to help us with like looking up things that are like these that we're doing. But when you're asking it to kind of figure out who you are, that's where I think that the issue of technology kind of
Yeah.
comes
Yeah,
on
because
play.
technology cannot replace human consciousness, no
No.
matter how hard it tries. So that kind of bleeds into the Uranus and Gemini transit, which is 2025 to 2032. And this is all about rapid change in communication, learning ideas. So AI, social media
Mhm.
evolution, new ways of sharing knowledge. So now we want to think about, right, there's the impact of that. The old ways of thinking or learning can feel limiting, and ideas are moving too fast. Now we're thinking about, is it true or not? Is it
Yep.
fake? Is it a deep fake? What can we trust? So now there has been this like amalgamation that's created that's kind of gotten away from us a little bit in a lot of ways. But when we think about what those guardrails could create, if we worked towards creating the change, the speed of in which we can create that change
Is so.
is astronomical, and that's never existed,
No.
right? So speaking your truth and learning to embrace and teach in unconventional ways and utilizing technology as a support platform to
Yep.
do that versus putting it in the driver's seat and now you're following its
Yep.
lead. Like, we have to stay in front. We have to be we these are tools, and it is an echo chamber for what we're putting into it. What we're putting
Yep.
into it is coming back to us. And that is the part that can really, like, if you're really sucked into it and we don't still that out and come to this place of center to say, like, what new thought wants to come in?
Yep.
Because it's a lot of regurgitation of the same information.
Yep. I mean, I even think of you putting I know we have electric cars and I know Teslas like take you to your destination, whatever. But I think of it as like, I drive the car and I'm utilizing my navigation as guidance. I'm still the one driving the car though. I don't trust the Teslas. I'm gonna be
I
honest
know,
with you.
because anything that can be remote shut down.
Don't trust it.
So this is where the conspiracy theories come online, because when you really strip away conspiracy and you think about what possibility could exist just by how it's built.
Yep.
And let's paint a picture in utopia where everybody's car is driving itself and all of our currency is digital. And any one of these things at any given time can be turned off.
Hmm.
We lose Wi-Fi, we lose all of it.
Yep.
And now there's a dependency on these things and a potential control mechanism that if that lever needed to be pulled to like shut humanity down in some way,
Done.
it'd be done. And we don't know how to grow vegetables. You know?
Yep.
So these are the reemergence that's happening because I think more and more people are thinking, and this is the tough part, right? Is that fear-based thinking or is it exploring potentiality? Right? What could happen in both
Yeah.
directions, right? Because again, technology, if leveraged correctly, this is where when we come back to the inside out approach, if the values that we're operating from aren't clean and we are infusing dysfunction into the technology or using it in a way that's divisive or to cause pain or to cause hurt,
Hmm.
then it shall be so.
Yep.
And those tools will be weaponized against humanity. But the person who started it was probably very well intended.
Hmm.
They thought, oh, that's really cool. Let's explore. This is the new age. This is what
Yep.
we're coming into. And so, where is it evolving and where is it actually taking a step backwards? But now it's at a speed
Yeah.
that is so quick. If we take a step backward, it feels like we're falling over
Yeah.
because it comes online like that. I want to talk more about Neptune and Aries because this is really one that we're this transit just happened. So this is like now through 2039. And this is where I think a lot of this spiritual based conversation comes online. And we talked a little bit about like, where's a spiritual war at play?
Hmm.
Right. And when we think in terms of 3D versus 5D and frequency living, like these are all topics that maybe we'll get to at a later time, but there's a lot of density on the planet. And if we're trying to raise the vibration of humanity, then shifting through some of these things, at least for me, I'm just going to go by what I've
Yep.
experienced. This belief in a larger knowing, a larger creative force, a larger energy that is leading us towards the highest good, regardless of the destruction and the pathways and the rebirths that have to happen. This energy is one of spiritual courage. It is inspired by individuality and driving from a place of vision. This larger calling, the feeling called movement is really about being able to connect in with whatever that is and understanding that we play a role in the continuation of that energy. So this is where Neptune and Aries comes into play, right? And the impact here is people start chasing their dreams with fearless creativity.
Mm.
And
Y'all hear that?
but also, and so like spiritual ego is another big topic because any one of these things are a paradigm, they're a dogma associated with it. It can become so much a part of my identity that I believe 5D exists and you don't, and
Yep.
and it's like I come back to lived experience. I have felt within my being what it means to raise my vibration. And when I'm in that state of raised vibration, what that feels like in my body, there's sensations, there's things that I start to receive, there's information that I'm now tuned into, and other times where I'm dense as shit and tired and nope, nothing's coming in and I'm
Yep.
consuming, right?
Yep.
That because we're
Yep.
human still, right? So,
And we can have both. And that's the
yes.
thing. We're meant to have both, but we've gotten so far into consumerism that all we do is consume, consume, consume. You turn on your phone, you're consuming, you eat, just kind of sitting there, you're consuming, you're watching TV, is consuming. And like we forget to connect to that nature element and even why we're here.
Yep. So I think the headline of Neptune and Aries, so now to 2039, and this is where if you want to, whatever, like whether it's the upcoming new year, setting intention, where is the space where you allow yourself to vision?
Mm.
And so where is our power in this as individuals that to potentially ripple into that collective? And it's all about stepping boldly into your unique purpose. And really this is rooted in trusting your instincts. So this is where inspired action comes into play because if we're trusting our gut or trusting our instincts, this inner knowing, this truth vein, right, then the actions that we're doing next and taking next are coming from that place. They're not coming from a place of lack or fear. And
Mhm.
easier said than done, and this is also like a big part of our work as well, especially as we think about the phases of birthing the purpose, right?
Yep.
We're really bringing people's they're getting themselves to this place of I'm feeling called, and then we show up and we're guides, we're kind of shepherds within the space, but really it's just reflecting back to them their greatness.
Yep.
We're tuning into the frequency that they're starting to bring themselves into, and then we receive with clarity components that start to click, and that's what it means to call in support and to call in help. So the inspired action piece is really where we come back to leading without fear, to be okay to take that step from a place of, you know what, I feel this bigger thing. I might not be able to explain it. We're in that till 2039.
And that's the thing. We can't even explain half the shit that we do, but we just do it. And
It's like,
we're like, I don't even know how do we put that into work.
we just tried.
Yeah.
We're out here trying, y'all. So that's happening right now. And a lot of people are coming to us in this space of like, nope, I'm betting on myself. I can't take this anymore.
Yep.
I can't do this anymore. I don't know what it looks like. And they're almost surrendering to the fact that they don't have it figured out.
Yep.
They don't know the how, but they know it's no longer a choice. So between now and, even the next 5 years, where are the things that are building up so intensely that it no longer feels like a choice for you to take that action?
Yep.
Right. And typically when it gets to that point, that's the path veering versus coming back to gut and instinct and taking action from that place. They're smaller course corrections, right? Than the massive overhaul and upheaval that might need to take place if you don't listen to your gut and you don't take inspired action.
Yep. And so the collective events right now, I'm gonna wow everybody.
Do it.
So the collective events right now that are happening are part of people listening to their gut and also not listening to their gut. And that
Absolutely.
is why
Here's the duality.
we're here right now.
Yep.
So with that being said, trust your gut.
Hope you enjoy your day.
Have fun in the Matrix.
I'm Lauren. She's Gina. And we're your friend Duelist.
See you next time, guys. I don't know. We don't know what to say.